Welcome to Movies, Music and More, a podcast that explores, breaks down and analyses the music of modern day media. I'm James.
I'm Andy.
And this is Lassie. Join us, your guides, as we dive into some of the greatest scores of the century and uncover the secrets and genius hidden within. Alright, welcome to the first episode of Movies, Music and More. Very excited to be here. You excited, Andy, to finally get started?
Yes.
Yes, this has been a long time running. So, our first episode is The Batman.
That was so bad.
Alright, you do a better one.
Oh, Batman.
Oh, that actually was a lot better, yeah. So our first episode is The Batman. But before we get into the actual movie and music itself, we thought, just because it's our first episode, a little bit of housekeeping and things. First of all, someone might ask, why did we have a dog called Lassie in our intro? To clarify, that's because that is my golden retriever who loves to snuggle up with us as we're watching movies. So she's actually a big part of the movie process, would you say, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's not here with us today.
Yeah, she's not. Well, she's still alive.
She's still alive. Yes, she's still alive. She's not here today.
Okay, good start. Yeah, so the Lassie is very much a part of the podcast too, we think. Now, a couple of other quick housekeeping things. First of all, just to understand what this podcast is about, we thought we'd just clarify a couple of key terms. So the difference between a soundtrack and a score, because mostly what we're going to be talking about in this podcast is the music of movies. And you get these different terms like soundtrack and score. So just to clarify, we're mostly going to be looking at movie scores. So a movie score is more instrumental music by a composer that's written specifically for a film. Having said that, people use those two terms very interchangeably. So we will probably accidentally call this the Batman soundtrack at some point.
Yeah.
Or
some point.
Yeah, probably it'll happen. Or we might say score when actually we're talking about a song. It doesn't matter too much, but we just thought we'd clarify that.
Plus also recommended that you wear headphones. Because orchestral type music and film music isn't very good when played out of a speaker. If you're playing it out on your iPad, just open wide, but with headphones it's much better. But if you don't have a headphones and if you don't have speaker, but if you do have a speaker, then it's probably not going to be very good, but... Still if you've got a great speaker setup, it's always good, but one of the things is, things like pop music, they do a special thing to music called compressing and some other things that make it sound good pretty much regardless what you listen to it on, but particularly this music, lots of orchestral music, lots of different dynamics, so louds and softs and all sorts of things, so it just sound... We do recommend wearing headphones, definitely. Definitely.
All right, let's get into it. So, the Batman film. Now, we thought, considering Batman is quite an old character, this is not like a standalone movie where it's new characters and things. There's a lot of history behind this. So we thought, Andy's actually the resident Batman expert. Can you give us just a quick background on the character Batman, just for those who might not be familiar with him?
So, Batman, his alter ego is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. He's got
must be nice.
Must be nice. He's got an underground lair called the Batcave. He's got a car which he calls the Batmobile, and he's got a computer. Actually, you know what? You'll probably know. It's called the Bat computer.
Yeah, probably could have guessed. Yeah.
You'll just put.
I actually hadn't heard of the Bat computer before. There you go. And he's looking at me with stunned silence.
Oh my god. He first showed up in Detective Comics in 1939, so he goes way back. Quite far back. Probably...
Is he older than Superman, do you know?
No, I think Superman was the first DC character.
Okay, must be pretty close, pretty old.
Yeah, I think 1 year later, but his parents were murdered by a gangster called Joe Chill.
Not so nice, yep.
He was left in the care of the family butler Alfred, who pretty much all Batman fans love. He's just a lovable guy. he really is just a lovable guy. He's had lots of romances over the years, but most famously with Selena Kyle, which they nearly got married in the comics.
Is that Catwoman?
Yes.
Ah, there you go.
They nearly got married in the comics, but apparently, Catwoman was working with another supervillain Batman. He was not in this movie. Bane, if you have watched The Dark Knight Rises, which I haven't, but Bane is in The Dark Knight Rises. There's just a whole thing, but they nearly get married, and then they don't. And then they fall in love again, and I don't know what happens next.
Yeah, I imagine with all the comics, there's been a whole lot of twists and turns. Anyway, that's a brief sort of background. Billionaire, tragic past, cool gadgets.
Yep.
That's the vibe, I think.
And putting pretty much bat on everything else.
Yeah, putting bat on anything. Great. And so along with, all that history, we have quite a lot of already pre-existing movies before this Batman film that we're looking at.
The first one was actually not the 1989 one, or not the 1966.
There's a lot. Yeah, if you look on Wikipedia, there's tons of them.
The first one, the actually first Batman movie, I think it came out in 1940.
Yeah, it's pretty old. But so along with all these movies and TV shows, all sorts of things, there's a lot of pre-existing music that goes along with it as well. So we thought to give the Batman film that we're looking at today, which is 2022, Batman film.
Which came out last year. Actually, no. It came out 2 years ago.
We were recording on the first day, on New Year's Day of 2024. So yes, I guess it technically came out 2 years ago.
Happy New Year, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
So along with all these old films, we've got lots of music. So to give a bit of context, we're going to have a quick listen to not all the pre-existing Batman music, but some of the greatest hits.
Some of the greatest hits,
the first one we're going to listen to is the 1966 Batman
TV show.
Yes. Alright, so that was the 1966 Batman TV show theme, composed by Neil Hefti. Pretty classic, and actually, really, I think, would you agree that this is actually the most famous Batman theme?
Yes, I would actually kind of
which is
agree.
Quite funny considering that, as you'll hear soon, that this era, quite early on, these more sort of cheesy superhero TV shows, it's much more lighthearted. And then you'll hear with the following tracks that it quickly gets, especially Batman, quickly gets much darker. I think that's fair to say for all the superhero movies and things, but Batman as a character particularly gets much darker. Really imaginative lyrics going on in that one. I think it's pretty cool that actually just about everyone knows that song. Like even little kids who have certainly never seen the show. I've never seen the show.
Me neither.
If you go, ba-na-na-na-na-na-na, they're going to know. Batman. Which is pretty cool because there's only some other songs like Star Wars or Harry Potter from films that I think just about everyone knows. But yeah,
that TV show went on for 3 years from 1966 to 1969, so it had a big run. And it would normally do once, and it would normally go one story, but they would have to split it up into 2 episodes.
Oh, there you go.
It's kind of like Doctor Who, except the old Doctor Who one was split up into 4 episodes for one actual story. Instead, this new the new Doctor Who, they just do 1 episode per story.
There you go. So that was 1966. Pretty famous Batman tune, very surf rock-esque.
You can actually get the 1966 TV show on DVD at JB Hi-Fi. I've seen it.
There you go. Maybe we need to do that for our next episode and watch that. Okay, our next one up, we're jumping to 1989 for the Batman movie.
So we're going 20 years ahead from when the 1966 TV show finished.
Yep, time jump. Here we go.
And then it was Tim Burton, was it, who directed it?
Yes, that's right. Okay, so as Andy said, that was the 1989 Batman theme directed by Tim Burton, and the composer was Danny Elfman, which those two have had quite the composer-director collaboration. They've done lots of films together. It's pretty much like if you watch a Tim Burton film, you get a Danny Elfman score. And you can hear that we get into a much darker sound, a much darker type of hero. We've lost the surf rock guitar
and again that was like 60s or in the 80s.
Yeah, it was from a long time ago, but we've certainly lost the guitars and the backup singers, and swapped it out for a studio orchestra. And it's quite a famous score in the film music circles. That's been talked about quite a lot, and it's a great one to check out as well. Now, around this era, the sort of late 80s, early 90s, there are a few other fairly mainstream Batman movies that were made, which the music is still good. It's just not quite as memorable, and they sort of have a similar sort of dark orchestral sounding theme music. So we thought we'd skip over a few of them, and we're going to jump right to 2005 with Batman Begins.
What's it, Christopher Nolan?
Yes, Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer composing this one. So have a listen to this one, and we'll chat about it in a moment. All right, so that's the 2005 Batman Begins. That's the Batman theme there by Hans Zimmer, as we mentioned. It's about as heavy and dark as you can get, I think. Would you agree?
But wait, they somehow managed to do a bit more heavier.
Yeah, I suppose the film we're about to talk about is certainly still heavy and dark, but that's a very Hans Zimmer-esque sounding track, which I'm sure at some point we'll get around to doing an episode on a film by Hans Zimmer, and talk a bit more about his sound. But in a sort of classic Hans Zimmer style, it's very more about the soundscape and mood of the music. There's not a lot of there's not a real tune in there. In fact, the Batman theme in that is just 2 notes. But it sounds awesome because it's got all this other crazy stuff going on. And yeah, so now we finally arrive to 2022 with the Batman film, which we are focusing on today, creatively named The Batman.
The Batman. I thought it would just be like Batman. That's it.
No, you got to have the in there.
Because they already have Batman, but if you're probably wondering, if you're probably thinking, hey, wasn't there one right in the middle between those? Batman v Superman, we couldn't act. There was Batman v Superman. There is like kind of. I mean, Batman does have a theme, but it doesn't really like have just one theme, one song for the theme.
Yeah, there's certainly some good music in that, but again, we thought we'd just pick out the real sort of highlights from Batman music.
But we probably are going to do Batman v Superman for one episode, but for now we're focusing.
Shh! Don't spoil. All right. Now, question for you, Andy. Considering we've had all these previous Batman movies and music and history before this Batman film, what was your reaction to hearing that there was a new Batman film being made?
Back then, when I first heard that there was going to be a new Batman, it was during 2021, and it was after my birthday party. My friend Curtis.
Do you remember this? Do you remember that this well?
Yes.
Oh my god! Okay.
My friend Curtis. He, for a little thing, he decided to bring me to the to see Spider-Man No Way Home. And during then that Batman movie was being filmed, and I think it was like the first trailer ever released of it, and I just saw it, and I'm just like, okay. But before then, I wasn't actually into Batman, but watching that, I then got into Batman.
Oh right, that was the start of your Batman session.
And when I learned that there had been like a whole lot of Batman movies before that, I'm just like, well, you practically used up all the villains. How the hell are you going to make another one?
Yeah, I had a similar reaction in that when I heard there was a new Batman movie, I just rolled my eyes and went, really? Another? Because I'm not the biggest fan of Batman. I'm not like Andy. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I was like, another Batman movie. But then when it came out, I didn't even plan to watch it, to be honest. And then when it came out, I heard it had really good reviews and watched it and was just blown away by the film score, by the music. And I think it's really made by the composer, Michael Giacchino. So a little bit of background on Michael Giacchino. So he started off in video games. So he did some video games like Medal of Honor, Lost World, Jurassic Park. There you go, Andy. You love Jurassic Park.
Yay.
And then he did a few TV shows like Alias and Lost, and it was in 2004 he first got into films, and his first film was The Incredibles by Pixar Animated Studios, which one of my favourite films. We are almost certainly going to do that on this podcast because it's got great music.
Yeah, I don't love The Incredibles, but I just like it. It's in the middle.
Oh, Andy, you're killing me. Anyway, but since then, since doing that film, Michael Giacchino has really become like one of the Hollywood giants. So he's done several films for the Mission Impossible franchise, Jurassic World, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Trek reboots, Pixar films, Planet of the Apes films, and lots more in the middle. Now, Andy, I've got a little quiz for you. Not so much a quiz, a question. Do you think, like, the average film goer, what film composers do you think they would know? Like, what names do you think they would know?
I think they'll probably know John Williams. Was he the guy who did Jurassic Park?
Yeah, John Williams at Jurassic Park and many others. Star Wars, Harry Potter, huge composer. Yep, definitely. Any others, do you think?
I'm not sure.
Because the other one that came to my mind was Hans Zimmer, which we've already talked about a little bit. He's become huge. What's interesting is I don't think many people would know Michael Giacchino's name. But if you look at the highest grossing box office composers, so composers that have done movies have sold the most tickets, number one is Hans Zimmer. So there you go.
$3.31.8 billion.
Yeah. Second one is John Williams. So, yeah, we're on the right track.
$25.5 billion.
Yeah. But then number three is Michael Giacchino.
$21.8 billion.
Yeah. So he's actually, like, really up there. Like, he almost should be a household name, considering that Hans Zimmer and John Williams are fairly well known. So that was another reason why we chose this film, because Michael Giacchino needs some loving, I reckon.
Yeah. That's for you, Michael Giacchino. You're probably not going to listen to this. Who knows? Maybe you will.
Maybe you will. So yeah, that's Michael Giacchino in a nutshell. A bit of background on this specific film, The Batman. So directed by Matt Reeves, who's done a few notable movies like Cloverfield, Let Me In, and a couple of the recent Planet of the Apes movies, all of which Michael Giacchino also composed the score for. So the Batman film was actually the fifth film they've done together. So they certainly at this point really know how to work together. And often when you get these close composer-director collaborations, it creates these really great results because it's not super common that happens quite a lot where the same director and same composer works together quite closely.
Getting, who was the director again?
Matt Reeves.
But I'm getting like a serious horror movie vibes from Matt Reeves.
Are you?
Let Me In sounds like a horror movie.
It does sound like... I haven't seen that film actually, so I don't know.
Planet of the Apes, I don't think that... I've definitely heard of it. When I think of apes, franchise. I think of King Kong.
That's true.
Because if I say, oh, look, a giant monkey is climbing up the Empire State Building, or monkeys are invading, you'll probably think of King Kong.
That's probably
You'll
true.
probably think, oh no, King Kong's coming here, one before he squishes us with his thumb.
That's true. We'll send that feedback to Matt Reeves. So Giacchino wrote all the main themes for the Batman movie prior to them actually shooting the movie, which is really rare. So he wrote it based on script pages and conversations with Matt Reeves. And I said, this is really not normal. So normally the film process goes, basically everything is done. So they do all the shooting, all the editing, all that stuff. And then right at the end of the production process, they give it to the composer. And they generally have somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks. Like, it can really vary. It's always quite intense. Like, it's a very intense job to write that much music that quickly and record it and all those things. But basically, it's normally tacked on to the end of the process. And sometimes, because it's at the end, if production is running late, it can get ridiculous. Sometimes composers are writing scores in days rather than weeks, which is ridiculous. But anyway, in this case, that was not what happened. And that meant that Michael Giacchino had a lot of time to write the score, which generally does lead to better results. And it also meant that the music was composed based more on moods and concepts rather than literally following the visuals on screen. Like in a John Williams score, you can really hear in an action scene that, like, I don't know, when Harry Potter swishes to the side on his broomstick, there's a little like musical thing that captures that. It's very dynamic. Whereas this is much more of sort of music that captures the mood of the film. And they actually ended up playing the music for the actors on set. So Robert Pattinson even said on record that it was the most important aspect for him to get into character that they had this music there. So it's pretty cool. It's really integrated into the whole film. And as just sort of a quick fun fact, this actually happens to be the longest score that Giacchino has ever filmed. And he's done a lot of films. As well as that, the pre-release of the score, so they pre-released the album for everyone to listen to before the movie came out, and it was the highest global streaming engagement from a score album ever.
Well, the Batman has been done quite a lot, and I'm not really surprised that happened, but I also did a couple of research just behind the scenes, not actually the music. But if you look back at all the other Batmans, you'll notice that this bat symbol is actually like leather, or it's not like a weapon fillable, like a weapon, but Matt Reeves kind of had a bit of a different idea, and so he wanted like the Batman chest plate, like the symbol on a chest plate.
There's a bat symbol on Batman's costume, yeah.
Of course.
Makes sense.
And he wanted it to be like, he didn't want it to be like painted on. He actually wanted it to be like a weapon. It's quite that's quite rare. I mean, for me, seeing the bat, like, with the bat, like, thinking that the Batman's chest plate is like a weapon, that hasn't actually been done before, and I think that's quite brilliant.
There's so much to build on with all the past films.
He doesn't use it until like near the end of the movie.
It's actually in a really key point of the film. Yeah. We'll get to talking about that soon. So this film, in terms of the actual plot of the film, is set during the second year of the Batman's existence within this narrative. So Bruce Wayne, what would you call it? Not his alter ego, his real ego.
His secret identity.
His secret identity. Yeah, but it's not that secret. But Bruce Wayne is in the midst of his crime fighting days and finding his feet as a vigilante. He's still kind of new at it, and the director Matt Reeves said basically that the truth is that he is kind of a drug addict. His drug is his addiction to this drive for revenge. He's a very dark, revenge-driven character. So basically, this is the character we're introduced to. It's a very tortured, probably fair to say traumatized, dysfunctional character, and driven by vengeance. That's the key. Like, what's the line he says at the start of the movie when some thugs ask him, "Who are you?"
I'm vengeance.
Yeah, he literally says, "I am vengeance." So, very revenge-driven. Okay. Just before we really start to get into some of the music, spoiler alert.
Yes.
From this point on, there will be serious spoilers. All right. So if you haven't seen the film and you want to see the film without it being spoiled, which I definitely think this is a film that if you knew what was going to happen, it wouldn't be as good. Because it's almost more like a detective mystery film than a superhero film in a lot of ways. So anyway, spoiler alert, here we go. So the first track we're going to listen to from the soundtrack album is called Can't Fight City Halloween, and this basically opens the movie. So it sets the mood for the film. So let's have a listen. Okay, so that was Can't Fight City Halloween, which, as I mentioned, pretty much opens the movie and sets the tone of the film. So, what words would you use to describe the tone that was just set?
Very dark.
Very dark, yeah.
But, then again, this scene, during that scene, Can't Fight City Halloween, it was nighttime, it was raining, and, but also... Later on, I think that you see, Jim Gordon lights the bat signal. Like I said, another bat thing.
Another bat thing.
And like Batman said, it's not a call. It's not also a call. It's a warning. And we saw a couple of criminals just looking up, and they probably know the Batman or they've heard of the Batman, either or seen the Batman. And, one guy wearing this weird mask just runs away in terror.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that description, because the Batman actually isn't really in that scene. It's more about, the story and fear that he instills into the criminal underworld. And the whole track is just slowly building up and building up, the fear is building up in the criminals. And there's a lot of things in that track that gives it that really dark, creepy sound. So you get lots of these little chromatic runs from strings, which kind of sounds like spiders, tingles down your spine. And there's things like low brass instruments like trombones and tubas doing these low swelling sounds. There's church bells as well, which is quite cool, because when we hear church bells, we have this association, at least in this dark setting, of death, like when the bell tolls. So there's all these things going on that give it this creepy, dark vibe. And as you said, it's kind of like the fear that Batman instills into everyone. Now, we just listened to the first half of that track where it builds and builds with all these ideas that we just discussed, but then it simmers back down again and starts to build up using a new melody. Let's have a listen to that first and we'll talk about it. So what you just heard then was this small musical idea repeating over and over and building stronger and stronger. It kind of started in the bass line and eventually was taken over by lots of the other instruments as well. We would probably call this little musical idea a motif, which is basically the word for a theme that only consists of a few little notes.
I thought you were saying it in French.
Yeah, maybe, or I think it's an Italian word, but yeah, it's got that kind of motif, got a sound to it. And would you agree that even though it's small, this is basically the theme for Batman in this film?
Yeah.
In case you didn't pick it up, it goes like this. Now, here's my little theory. Listen to this. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you know what it's from?
Didn't Mozart create it?
No, close. Beethoven wrote it. So this is from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the opening of that, which is a really old piece of music, but a really famous one that's been in all sorts of media and things. So like even you probably hasn't listened to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, instantly recognize it. And that little idea, dum 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 dum, is called the Fate idea or something like that. And it's kind of this doom vibe. If you take that idea, just change the rhythm a little bit. It's basically the Batman theme.
It basically is.
Which I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it's pretty cool. And even if it wasn't, so there is sometimes a thing in film music where people can get annoyed that like it sounds like a composer's ripping off a pre-existing piece of music. But whether that's true or not and is a problem, that's a whole different debate. But I think in general, it's more that they're pulling associations. So we have this association that bum 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 is like really scary and dreadful. If he just changed it a little bit, he's got this cool Batman theme. Here's another one for you.
Darth Vader's Imperial March.
Yeah, take the first couple of notes.
Oh, yeah.
It's all there. Anyway, so that's basically the Batman theme. Very dark, very intense. As the director we mentioned earlier, Matt Reeves, said, this is basically Batman's obsession, is how he described that theme. And you hear it all throughout the film. It's everywhere. And sometimes it's big and grand, and sometimes it's this sort of just low, tense thing, but it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. So now, the next track we're going to listen to is called The Batman. And listen out for that Batman motif, that little idea.
Yeah.
What you'll also hear in this track, though, is
Bruce Wayne's theme.
Yes, Bruce Wayne's theme. So it's more this lyrical, noble melody. So listen out for that. So there you go. As Andy said, you have the Batman motif going on, but you also have this Bruce Wayne theme that's more lyrical and sweeping and noble. And it's quite cool because Batman has like basically two personalities. He's got Bruce Wayne, which is more this sort of tortured guy, sort of trying to do the right thing. Sort of. And then there's Batman, who's like vengeance and taking revenge and is violent. And you hear that in that track. You've got these two ideas, this very dark, vengeful idea, and then the Bruce Wayne theme. And I think it definitely is the Bruce Wayne theme because you hear it in the movie when Bruce Wayne is out in public. So, like, when Batman is out in public in his costume, you get the Batman theme, whereas when Bruce Wayne is out, so the first time in the film he goes out in public is at a state funeral, and you get that theme. We'll discuss this more later, but this theme also takes on more of a kind of meaning of hope and being like a morally good person, being a hero towards the end of the film. So we'll get there eventually. And yeah, at this point, we basically have covered all the music for the Batman character.
This is the end of part 1. We're going to do part 2 is going to be on more other people than the Batman.
And some of the other different characters.
We still are going to focus a little bit more on the Batman, but mainly on the other characters.
Which has some of the best music as well. Like the Batman theme is great, but some of his other themes are awesome. So yeah, join us for part 2 and we'll see you then.